I'd like to welcome you to the first in our series of fall poetry readings, sponsored by the Friends of the Scranton Public Library. And we're pleased that this year we're receiving financial assistance through a grant from the Scranton Area Foundation and also a grant from the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts. But we still have to rely on your donations, and if you haven't done so already, we'd like to encourage you to give what you can. There's on the table back by the stairs. I'd also like to announce that after the reading there will be a reception. There'll be some wine and cheese at that end of the room. And after the reading, 2 of Mr. Snyder's books will also be on sale at the table right back there. Also, I'd like to announce the coming readings in the series. On November 8th, William Bronk will be reading, and on December 7th, June Jordan. And looking forward to next spring, we're also going to have one reading next spring with Galway Cannell. Date to be arranged. I also want to briefly announce that in Scranton, a new type of poetry reading series is beginning. It's going to be on Saturday afternoons at Scanlon's Saloon on Mulberry Street in Scranton. And it's going to be devoted to local poets who will be reading their work. On October 28th at 2 p.m., the first one will be held at Scanlon's. Jerry Grealish and Don Knoll will be reading, and that'll be going once a month through the winter. We're very pleased to be starting the series with Gary Snyder, who's certainly one of the best poets writing today. He's the author of 6 major collections of poetry, including Myths and Texts in Turtle Island, which will be on sale tonight, also Regarding Wave. And it was Turtle Island for which he was awarded the Pulitzer Prize in Poetry in 1975. His latest book is actually a collection of essays entitled The Old Ways. I think that we're impatient to get things going. I'm going to cut my introduction a bit short and simply say that I think that the precision and music of Mr. Snyder's poetry will provide a very enjoyable listening experience tonight. And at this time, I'd like to present Mr. Gary Snyder.
Good evening. Can you hear me all right? Okay. Sorry this got a little delayed in getting started, but one thing we wanted to do was open the side windows and get the heat turned off. It was evident from the temperature in this place when we first came up the stairs that it was going to get stuffy before long with this number of people in here. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and greetings to all of you, friends, fellow workers, comrades. Tonight's reading I would like to dedicate to my old teacher, teacher of poetry, teacher of calligraphy, teacher of how to live, Lloyd Reynolds, at Reed College, where I went to college, who died a couple of weeks ago. And one of Lloyd's other students, eminent students, M.C. Richards, is with us tonight, I'm happy to say. I heard news of Lloyd Reynolds' death in a phone call from Phil Whalen, fellow poet and colleague who was at Reed College at the same time I was, and who was an infinitely better calligrapher than I ever came to be, and who is now a Zen priest at the San Francisco Zen Center in San Francisco. Excellent poet. The message came to me of Lloyd Reynolds' death, which was, in its time, inappropriate, all things being impermanent. I'm going to start this evening with an old text that some of you may recognize. It's called the Smokey the Bear Sutra. In 1968, 10 years ago, winter solstice, I returned to the United States to live after a 12 years residence in Japan, and immediately found myself plunged into the affairs of the continent, and in particular with the rising concern for the environment. In February of 1969, the Sierra Club held its biennial wilderness conference in the Hilton Hotel in San Francisco, a fact which I was apprised of by reading the newspaper. Something clicked in me when I saw that announcement. I was temporarily living with my wife and my baby child at that time in an apartment in San Francisco. Something clicked, and I instantly put together a synthesis of a number of concerns and vectors that I'd been working on for several years, which amounted to bringing together the lore of the circumpolar Siberian bear cult, which goes back to the Paleolithic, and ultimately to the caves in Bavaria, 70,000 years old, where there are skulls of Ursus speleos, the now extinct cave bear, arranged in special patterns with certain bones protruding from their eye sockets, indicative of religious and magical behavior, the oldest recognized in the matter of humanity, because 70,000 years is the longest time frame that we have to work with in regard to anything remotely considered religious. And those people were not Homo sapiens. I mean, they were Homo sapiens, but they were Neanderthal, pre-Cro-Magnon. Anyhow, this interest in bears continues all the way through Finland and the Kalevala, the Finnish epic, where you'll find these wonderful accounts of especially ceremonial magical bear hunting and bear eating, and into archaic Chinese, Japanese lore, and as surviving bear ceremonialism in Northern California and Utah to this day, so that just last June, I went to the bear dances in Janesville, California, sponsored by the northern branch of the Maidu called the Kangkau, and the Honey Lake Paiute come over there too to gamble, where they do the bear dance, which is part of the same religious complex that goes back to the Upper Paleolithic at least. And it became evident to me that certain aspects of esoteric Buddhism in Japan, particularly the worship of a little mountain deity with fangs and a sword, who stands on a rock which is burning, whose name is Fudo, was also actually derived from ancient bear worship. So when I arrived in San Francisco in 1968 and saw a Forest Service poster of Smokey the Bear, I realized what my work was. This most recent surfacing of humanity's most ancient religion, namely Smokey the Bear. So that very night, I wrote this sutra down and managed to get a printers called Eastwind Printers to stay open all night and print it up for me so that I could hand out 1,000 copies the next morning at the Hilton Hotel wearing one of those hats at the entrance, handing out this broadside to Forest Service brass and saying to them as I handed it out, "Smokey the Bear literature, sir," so they would all take it. This is my opening salvo. This is my personal opening salvo, then, in the environmental battle after 1969. And it actually follows the structure of a Buddhist sutra. That is to say, it describes who is the speaker, who is the audience, where did the discourse take place, what vows were made, what are the magical spells, and what merit accrues to those who will take it on themselves to recite it. All of those things are part of a traditional Buddhist sutra. Okay. Smokey the Bear Sutra. Once in the Jurassic, about 150 million years ago, the great Sun, Buddha, in this corner of the infinite void, gave a discourse to all the assembled elements and energies, to the standing beings, the walking beings, the flying beings, and the sitting beings, even grasses, to the number of 13 billion, each one born from a seed, assembled there, a discourse concerning enlightenment on the planet Earth. He said, "In some future time, there will be a continent called America. It will have great centers of power, called such as Pyramid Lake, Walden Pond, Mount Rainier, Big Sur, Everglades, and so forth. And powerful nerves and channels, such as Columbia River, Mississippi River, and Grand Canyon. There will be a variety of creature in that era called the human race, which will get into troubles all over its head and practically wreck everything in spite of its own strong, intelligent Buddha nature." He said, "The twisting strata of the great mountains and the pulsings of volcanoes are my love burning deep in the earth. My obstinate compassion is schist and basalt and granite to be mountains to bring down the rain. In that future American era, I shall enter a new form, to cure the world of loveless knowledge that seeks with blind hunger and mindless rage, eating food that will not fill it." And he manifested himself in his true future form as Smokey the Bear. A handsome, smoky-colored brown bear, standing on his hind legs, showing that he is aroused and watchful, and bearing in his right paw the shovel that digs to the truth beneath appearances and cuts the roots of useless attachments and flings damp sand on the fires of greed and war. His left paw in the gesture, the mudra of comradely display, indicating that all creatures have the full rights to live to their limits, and that deer, rabbits, chipmunks, snakes, dandelions, and lizards all grow in the realm of the Dharma. Wearing the blue work overalls, symbolic of slaves and laborers, the countless people oppressed by civilizations that claim to save but often destroy. Wearing the broad-brimmed hat of the West, symbolic of the forces that guard the wilderness, which is the true state of things, and the natural path of people on earth, and all true paths lead through mountains. With a halo of smoke and flame behind, the forest fires of the Kali Yuga, end of the universe, fires caused by the stupidity of those who think things can be gained and lost, whereas in truth all is contained vast and free in the blue sky and green earth of one mind. Round-bellied, to show his kind nature, and that the great earth has food enough for everyone who loves her and trusts her. Trampling underfoot wasteful freeways and needless suburbs, smashing the worms of capitalism and totalitarianism, and indicating the task. His followers, becoming free of cars, houses, canned food, universities, and shoes, master the three mysteries of their own body, speech, and mind, and fearlessly chop down the rotten trees and prune out the sick limbs of this country, America, and burn the leftover trash. Wrathful but calm, austere but comic, Smokey the Bear will illuminate those who would help him. But for those who would hinder or slander him, he might put them out. Thus, his great mantra, Dhamma samanta vajranam chanda maharoshana spataya hum traka hangmang. I dedicate myself to the universal diamond. Be this raging fury destroyed. And he will protect those who love woods and rivers, gods and animals, hobos and madmen, prisoners and sick people, musicians, playful women, hopeful children. And if anyone is threatened by advertising or air pollution, they should chant Smokey the Bear's war spell. Drown their butts, crush their butts. Drown their butts, crush their butts. And Smokey the Bear will surely appear to put the enemy out with his Vajra shovel. Now, those who recite this sutra and then try to put it in practice will accumulate merit as countless as the sands of Arizona and Nevada. Will help save planet Earth from total oil slick. Will enter the age of harmony of human beings and nature. Will win the tender love and caresses of men, women, and beasts. Will always have ripe blackberries to eat and a sunny spot under a pine tree to sit at. And in the end, will win highest, perfect enlightenment. I want to go through several kinds of poems, not in chronological order, but in order of the kind of work they do. I've been interested in this lately, understanding poetry by its functions. Starting with birth. So this is a song for birth. It's called Kai, Today. It's for the birth of my oldest boy, which I wrote actually on the day he was born in Kyoto, Japan. A teenage boy in training pants is stretching by the river. And I see a girl child weeping, climbing up her elder sister. And I see the Kawaramachi beggar's steady look and his searching reach of gritty hand in plastic sidewalk pail with a lip of grease. Ah, these fates. Before Masa and I met, what's your from the beginning face, Kai? Born again? To the mother's hoarse, bear down, groan, and dark red mask, spiraling, glistening, blue-white, up and out from her. I remember dolphins leaping in threes through blinding silver interfaces, Persian Gulf, tanker, wave slip, opening, boundless, behind us when I was working on ships. Whap! As they fall back, arcing into her sea. And a poem for the first year called Meeting the Mountains. This is also the same little human being making first contact with the High Sierra, age 1. He crawls to the edge of the foaming creek. He backs up the slab ledge. He puts a finger in the water. He turns to a trapped pool and puts both hands in the water. He puts one foot in the pool. He drops pebbles in the pool. He slaps the water surface with both hands, cries out, rises up, and stands facing toward the torrent and the mountain, raises up both hands and shouts 3 times. When kids get a little older, they make their own songs, you know. I can't match those. But this one came back from the playground a while back. A year and a half, 2 years ago. Going down the highway, 1954, Batman led a big one, blew me out the door. Wheels couldn't take it, engine fell apart, all because of Batman's supersonic fart. No, kids are really poets, but they don't know it. They got Longfellows. Baby, baby, suck your toe all the way to Mexico. Kindergarten baby, wash fish and gravy. So what you do with children for poems, I've been interested in that. I did this a few years back after a day of picking mushrooms with the kids, a good mushroom season. Picking a lot of boletus, actually, in western Sierra, northern California slopes, pine woods and oak forest, where I live now, where I've lived since 1970. Made this up for the boys as they were going to sleep that night after an afternoon of mushroom picking. Careful mushroom picking, got to be careful. And made it up to a tune in ballad meter, which is what children respond to. They like rhymes. All this free verse stuff, you know, that turns them off. This is called The Wild Mushroom. I'm going to sing this one. Well, the sunset rays are shining. Me and Kai have got our tools. A basket and a trowel and a book with all the rules. Don't ever eat boletus if the tube mouths they are red. Stay away from the amanitas or brother you are dead. Sometimes they are already rotten or the stalks are broken off, where the deer have knocked them over while turning up the duff. We set out in the forest to seek the wild mushroom in shapes diverse and colorful, shining through the woodland gloom. If you look out under oak trees or around an old pine stump, you'll know a mushroom is coming by the way the leaves are humped. They send out multiple fibers through the roots and sod. Some make you mighty sick, they say, or bring you close to God. So here's to the mushroom family, a far-flung friendly clan. For food, for fun, for poison, they are a help to man. Also, when you have children, this is like poetry for children, right? You have to teach them how to meditate, how to pray. And I'm going to go through this. I'll end up with something awful at the end, you know, like death. This is prayer for the great family, this poem. And this also comes out of working through that cycle of what poetries do. This came out of a clearer sense of the need for being able to say things in ways that would tune people in other than just a university elite, say. Not that that makes it easier, mind you, This is based on a Mohawk prayer. The structure comes from a Mohawk prayer. The language is entirely mine. I heard it from, I first heard it from the Rarihokwats, who was traveling with the White Roots of Peace, which is a Mohawk spiritual group that travels around the country sometimes. Prayer for the great family. Gratitude to Mother Earth, sailing through night and day, and to her soil, rich, rare, and sweet. In our minds, so be it. Gratitude to plants, the sun-facing, light-changing leaf and fine root hairs, standing still through wind and rain. Their dance is in the flowing spiral grain. In our minds, so be it. Gratitude to air, bearing the soaring swift and the silent owl at dawn. Breath of our song, clear spirit breeze. In our minds, so be it. Gratitude to wild beings, our brothers and sisters, teaching secrets, freedoms, and ways, who share with us their milk, self-complete, brave, and aware. In our minds, so be it. Gratitude to water, clouds, lakes, rivers, glaciers, holding or releasing, streaming through all our own bodies, salty seas. In our minds, so be it. Gratitude to the sun, blinding, pulsing light through trunks of trees, through mists, warming caves where bears and snakes sleep. He who wakes us. In our minds, so be it. Gratitude to the great sky, who holds billions of stars and goes yet beyond that, who beyond all powers and thoughts, and yet is within us. Grandfather, space. The mind is his wife. So be it. You know, when kids ask questions, what you find yourself doing is really explaining the universe according to the scientific model of the universe as best you understand it, which does prove ultimately, regardless of whatever model you would like to believe in, when you come right down to it, that's what you think is true. Because that's what you tell your kids when they ask you questions. Like when they say, "What's the moon?" You end up saying, well, it's some kind of ball of rock out there circulating around the planet, you know. And when they ask you what the sun is, well, whatever you might like to say symbolically or poetically, what you end up saying, well, it seems to be a big fire of it's nuclear fusion. I don't know what that is, but it's going out there, see. If we accept the fact that that is actually what we do, return to ourselves imperfectly understood as it is in our own model of the cosmos, then it really means, I mean, I've realized this for myself, that we better find out what it is, really, and take it seriously. And that means for me to take the scientific view of the universe and make it into mythology and poetry. What else can you do with it? If that's what you're going to tell your children, then you better make it into songs. So that cuts out the work for poets for the next 3 or 4 centuries, because we haven't even started doing that yet. We lag about a century behind science, they say, you know, always, which isn't necessarily bad. Anyway, this is one little cosmic explanation, but I drew this out of the Japanese creation mythology, and if it fits with science, fine. It's called No Matter, Never Mind. The father, I mean, this is what you teach your children. That's why I'm staying on this. Just like that prayer to the great family that I just read is something that we say in our house. It's a functional poem. It's not just something that lays around in a book. The father is the void. The wife, waves. Their child is matter. Matter makes it with his mother, and their child is life, a daughter. The daughter is the great mother, who, with her father, brother, matter, as her lover, gives birth to the mind. Follow that? The father is the void, the wife, waves. Their child is matter. Matter makes it with his mother, and their child is life, a daughter. The daughter is the great mother, who, with her father, brother, matter, as her lover, gives birth to the mind. No matter, never mind. What did I do with the back country? Here it is. In the evolution of poetries, shortly after children's songs come work songs. After 10 or 11 or 12, children enter the workforce, or they should. They're artificially delayed by modern American economics, which absolutely must keep them out of the workforce till they're 22, so that there won't be any more employment than there is. But normally, children go to work at 10 or 12 and start picking acorns and husking chestnuts and splitting firewood and walking behind the horse and doing useful things, which naturally gives them a much better image of themselves than being artificially maintained in large buildings for long periods of time, where the amount of information that they receive is very scanty compared to the time they put into it. And so that's why I put work poems or work songs next in order, because they start young in life. This is called Oil. This is a work poem of my own from serving as a tanker and as a merchant marine fireman, oiler, water tender on a tanker, National Maritime Union, working man, not Navy, National Maritime Union member, 1960 about, 59 about, working on a tanker that was, I picked this ship out of Yokohama when I had Siemens papers dating back to when I was 18. And when I was living in Japan doing Buddhist studies, I ran out of money and also out of patience one time and wanted to get away from Japan, so I went up to Yokohama and caught this job, which kept me running back and forth between the Persian Gulf and Pacific oil ports for 9 months. Then I got paid off and went back to Japan. Anyway, 1960, before the oil crisis, I did this poem called Oil. Soft rain squalls on the swells south of the Bonins late at night. Light from the empty mess hall throws back bulky shadows of winch and fair lead over the slanting fantail where I stand. But for men on watch in the engine room, and the man at the wheel, and the lookout in the bow, the crew is asleep. In cots on deck, it's hot, or iron bunks down drumming passageways below. The ship burns with a furnace heart, steam veins and copper nerves, quivers and slightly twists, and always goes. Easy roll of the hull and deep vibrations of the turbines underfoot, bearing what all these crazed, hooked nations need, steel plates and long injections of pure oil. I tell you folks, I love clapping, but it's nice to go right through sometimes to another poem. So why don't we just save that till the end? Another work poem, Fire in the Hole, That's what you shout when you're ready to set off a dynamite charge. Fire in the hole. You're supposed to shout it 3 times before you set the charge off. This was doing trail maintenance in the High Sierra, a season I put in where I was working for the Department of Agriculture, actually, and the government taught me how to use dynamite. So we were blasting rocks, pulverizing large granite boulders to widen the trail so you could bring pack strings with mules and horses through, not for tourists really, but for firefighting. A long, slow process of improving the network of trails in the high country for protecting the forests. Drilling the holes to set the dynamite in by hand, no compressed air, meaning holding a star drill in one hand and a short-handled 4-pound hammer, which you call a single jack when it's got a short hammer, double handle, double jack when it's got a long handle, right? Some of you folks might still remember mining around here. So single jack is what you handle with one hand, star drill what you handle with the other hand. You dasn't miss the drill and hit your hand, or you can't use that hand for a week. Squatting a day in the sun, one hand turning the steel drill, one swinging the 4-pound single jack hammer down. 3 inches an hour, granite bull hump boulder square in the trail. Above, the cliffs of Paiute Mountain waver, sweat trickling down the back. Why does this day keep coming into mind? A job in the rock hills, aching arms, mule tracks, arching blinding sky, noon sleep under snake-scale juniper limbs. That, the mind, entered the tip of steel, and the arm fell like breath. The valley reeling on the pivot of that drill. 12 inches deep, I packed the charge. Dynamite brought on mules like frankincense. Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole! And jammed the plunger down. Through dust and sprinkling stone, strolled back to sea, hands and arms and shoulders, finally free. I've written a lot of those. But I'm going to go on to the next category now, which is courting songs, love songs, the major genre of post-medieval Occidental literature. You don't find many work songs, in the libraries, but you find lots of love songs. This is, I'll just read 1 or 2 of these, because we all know what they're like. This is called After Work. The shack. Now, see, that's what you do after work. Right. The shack and a few trees float in the blowing fog. I pull out your blouse, warm my cold hands on your breasts. You laugh and shudder, peeling garlic by the hot iron stove. Bring in the axe, the rake, the wood. We'll lean on the wall against each other, stew simmering on the fire as it grows dark, drinking wine. Negative side is that. This is from a section called Kali. I'm reading from the back country right now. Negative side of that. This is called To Hell with Your Fertility Cult. To hell with your fertility cult. I Never did want to be fertile. You think this world is just a goddamned oversized cunt, don't you? Everything crowding in and out of it like a railway terminal. And isn't that nice? All those people going on trips. Well, this is what it feels like, she said, and knocked the hen off the nest and grabbed an egg and threw it at him right in the face. The half-formed chick, half clung, half slid, half alive, down over his cheekbone, around the corner of his mouth, part of it thick yellow and faintly visible bones, and it dripped down his cheek and chin. He had nothing to say. That's what you get for raising chickens. I'm going to read one more that kind of ties to that. This is it's just an after poem. After Ramprasad Sen, who was a Bengali vernacular poet of the 18th century, who wrote a lot of poems kind of like this. Hindu view of the question of birth and rebirth. Arms shielding my face, knees drawn up, falling through flicker of womb after womb, through worlds, only begging, Mother, must I be born again? Snyder says, you bear me, nurse me, I meet you, always love you, you dance on my chest and thighs, forever born again. What's going on down there? Can you hear all right with that noise coming up the stairs? I'll try. One more along those lines. In India, where I traveled in '62 one time, walking through the plowed fields between the archaeological site of the old ruins of the Buddhist University of Nalanda and the little Hindu village that was a mile away from there, along with a Cambodian monk, friend of mine, whose name was Goshananda, we came on a stone figure of a lovely naked lady standing on a pig that was half turned out of the ground by the farmer's plows. And I recognized it as the ancient Buddhist goddess Marichi, the goddess of the dawn. You recognize it by the fact she's standing on a pig. That's her little sign, you know. So I wrote this because also that same day we'd visited an Untouchables village where they were slaughtering pigs. And the Untouchables in India are the only people who keep pigs, let alone slaughter them. So this poem is called The Mother of the Buddhas, Queen of Heaven, Mother of the Sun, Marichi, Goddess of the Dawn, which was her full title, that particular figure. Old sow in the mud, bristles caked black down her powerful neck. Tiny hooves churn, squat body slithering deep in food dirt, her warm filth, deep plowing snout, dragging teats. Those who keep her or eat her are cast out. She turns her small eye from earth to look straight at me. Okay. Song of the Taste. Eating the living germs of grasses, eating the ova of large birds, eating the fleshy sweetness packed around the sperm of swaying trees, eating the muscles of the flanks and thighs of soft-voiced cows, eating the bounce in the lamb's leap, eating the swish in the ox's tail, eating roots grown swole inside the soil, drawing on life of living, clustered points of light spun out of space and hidden in the grape, eating each other's seed, eating, each other, kissing the lover in the mouth of bread, lip to lip. Now I'm reading grown-ups' poems. I'm just starting that now. The beginning of adult poems is power vision songs achieved in solitude. The poems that you get by going out and being alone and then coming back when you get a song. That's when you begin to go outside the human social nexus and learn a few things that you can't learn from other people. Everything I was doing so far you can learn from other people. This is outside of that, most of it. Suwanosei Island, a tiny island in the South China Sea, occupied by a tiny Amami Island, Okinawan-style ethnic population, where I lived 2 years, farming, 40 people, farmers and fishermen. And every summer in August, during the full moon nights of August, they have a dance. And in that dance, all of the women hold hands and dance in a circle. The line starts with the oldest woman in the village, and there's only one village on this island, and it goes down in order of age to the youngest girl who can walk, who has just learned to walk that year. A circle from a 3-year-old to an 80-year-old, like that. And the music is played for the dance by all the men, who play a kind of a banjo called a jabisen with a snakeskin head. And the songs they sing and play, which are the music, are love songs. And for 2 hours, only the women dance. And then after midnight or so, the men and the women join in together and dance that night for several nights during the full moon. So this poem is called Love. Women who were turned inside out 10 times over by childbirth. On the wind-washed lonely islands, lead the circle of Obon dancers. Through a full moon night in August, the youngest girl last. Women who were up since last night, scaling and cleaning the flying fish, sing about love. Over and over, sing about love. So, family, again, from another level, taking a bath together. I'm going to read this poem called The Bath, which some of you may have heard before. I think it's still useful. Context is no electricity, no propane. Consequently, wood-burning sauna stove bath, most efficient way to keep clean, and a way to handle everybody at once because there's space for it. Hot water, drain in the slab, cold water coming in, rocks on top of the stove, little low window, kerosene lantern outside, the light comes in through the window. My 2 boys and myself, and my wife. The bath. This is from Turtle Island. Can you hear all right? Is it hard? I'll do the best I can. I can hear that noise coming up the stairs myself. Washing Kai in the sauna. The kerosene lantern set on a box outside the ground level window. It lights up the edge of the iron stove and the wash tub down on the slab. Steaming air and crackle of water drops brushed by on the pile of rocks on top. He stands in warm water. Soap all over the smooth of his thigh and stomach. He says, "Gary, don't soap my hair." His eye sting fear. My soapy hand feeling through and around the globes and curves of his body, up in the crotch, and washing, tickling out the scrotum, little anus. His penis curving up and getting hard as I pull back skin and try to wash it. Laughing and jumping, flinging arms around, I squat, all naked too. Is this our body? Sweating and panting in the stove steam, hot stone, cedar planking, wooden bucket, water splashing, kerosene lantern flicker, wind in the pines out, Sierra forest ridges night. Masa comes in, letting fresh cool air sweep down from the door, a deep, sweet breath. And she tips him over, gripping neatly one knee down, her hair falling, hiding one whole side of shoulder, breast, and belly. She washes deftly Kai's head hair as he gets mad and yells. The body of my lady, her winding valley spine. The space between her thighs I reach through, cup her curving vulva arch and hold it from behind. A soapy tickle, a hand of grail that opens back a turning double mirror world of wombs in rings that start in music. Is this our body? The hidden place of seed, the veins network flow across the ribs that gathers milk and peaks up in a nipple, fits our mouth. The sucking milk from this our body sends through jolts of light, the son, the father sharing mother's joy, that brings a softness to the flower of the awesome, open, curling lotus gate I cup and kiss as Kai laughs at his mother's breast. He now is weaned from we wash each other, this our body. Kai's little scrotum up close to his groin, the seed still tucked away that moved from us to him in flows that lifted with the same joy's forces as his nursing Masa later, playing with her breast, or me within her, or him emerging. This is our body. Clean and rinsed and sweating more, we stretch out on the redwood benches, hearts all beating, quiet to the simmer of the stove, the scent of cedar, and then turn over, murmuring gossip of the grasses, murmuring firewood, wondering how Gen's napping, how to bring him in, soon wash him too. These boys who love their mother, who loves men, who passes on her sons to other women. The cloud across the sky, the windy pines, the trickle, gurgle in the swampy meadow. This is our body. Fire inside and boiling water on the stove. We sigh and slide ourselves down from the benches, wrap the babies, step outside. Black night and all the stars. Pour cold water on the back and thighs. Go in the house. Stand steaming by the center fire. Kai scampering on the sheepskin. Gen standing, hanging on and shouting, bow, 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 bow. This is our body. Drawn up cross-legged by the flames, drinking icy water, hugging babies, kissing bellies, laughing on the great earth. Come out from the bath. Poems that come with solitude and visions given to you by animals. This actually happened to me. I mustn't hit myself too hard. We had been having some serious talks on the environmental crisis in San Francisco, about 73. I think it was Richard Brodigan and Michael McClure and Stuart Brand and myself and several others. And the poet Nanao Sakaki, Japanese poet, was in the United States at that time. My old comrade from Suwanosei Island, actually. And Nanao raised his hand in the middle of all of that paranoid discussion. And he said, "You guys all wrong. No need to survive." Man, what a relief. Later, I was out in the desert. Just a couple of weeks later, I was out in the desert, and that message was completed for me in the form that this poem describes. It's called Magpie's Song. 6 in the morning, I was sitting down by an excavation gravel pile. Juniper, desert Southern Pacific tracks, Interstate 80 not far off. And between trucks, could hear coyotes, maybe 3, howling and yapping from a rise. Then a magpie flew down to a bough, tipped his head and looked at me and said, "Here in the mine, brother, turquoise blue, I wouldn't fool you. Smell the breeze, it came through all the trees. No need to fear what's ahead. Snow up on the hills west. We'll be there every year, be at rest. A feather on the ground, the wind sound. Here in the mind, brother, turquoise blue." That's just how it came to me. Then he flew off. They say that those kinds of songs are useful for healing. And healing means making whole. Heal, whole, same word. And making whole means, among other things, putting us all back together with the sense, with the understanding of what it is that we belong to, which is planet Earth, Gaia, biosphere, life network, diversity gene pool, of which we are small, interesting, complicated, and mischievous organisms within which. For the children. The rising hills, the slopes of statistics lie before us. The steep climb of everything going up, up, as we all go down. In the next century, or the one beyond that, they say, will be valleys, pastures. We can meet there in peace if we make it. To climb these coming crests, one word to you and your children. Stay together. Learn the flowers. Go light. As for poets, the earth poets, who write small poems need help from no one. The air poets play on the swiftest gales and sometimes loll in the eddies, poem after poem, curling back on the same thrust. At 50 below, fuel oil won't flow, and propane stays in the tank. A fire poet burns at absolute zero, fossil love pumped back up. The first water poet stayed down 6 years. She was covered with seaweed. The life in her poem left millions of tiny different tracks, crisscrossing through the mud. With the sun and the moon in his belly, the space poet sleeps. No end to the sky. But his poems, like wild geese, fly off the edge. A mind poet stays in the house. The house is empty, and there are no walls. The poem is seen from all sides, everywhere at once. I'm going to read something rather different now. Where did that go? I've been working for some time on a rather complicated, interconnected long poem called Mountains and Rivers Without End. This would be a good chance to take a little break. If anybody wants to leave right now, this would be a good time to go. I'll give you a second to go. A little bit of quiet for a second here. Mountains and Rivers Without End is a poem in progress over the last 15 years, actually. And some sections of it have been published. What I'm reading here tonight has not been published in book form. Just by way of introduction to it, this one little poem called The Rabbit, which kind of sets it out. The title, incidentally, Mountains and Rivers Without End, comes from a Yuan Dynasty Chinese landscape scroll by Xu Bin, which is actually in the Cleveland Museum, if you want to go look at it. And it's very long, and it unrolls sideways on a table so that you can go through the whole panorama of it. This is called The Rabbit. A grizzled, black-eyed rabbit showed me irrigation ditches, open paved highway, white line to the hill, bell, chill, blue, jewel, sky, banners, banner clouds flying, and the mountains all gathered with juniper trees on their flanks, cone buds, snug bark scale, and thin powder snow over rock scrabbler, pricklers, boulders, and the pines and junipers were singing, the trees all singing, the mountains all singing. Together, the sky and the mist, to bring it down, snow breath, ice banners, and gather it water, sent from the singing peaks, flanks, and folds, down arroyos and ditches by highways, the water, the people to use it, the mountain and juniper. Do it for men, said the rabbit. So what I'm going to read is called Ma. Hello, boy. I was very glad to hear from you. I know by the way you write and what you said that you are just okay. Yes, I know you all have been working long hours. $15 isn't bad at all. I never made but $5 a day. I thought that was good. Try your damnedest to hang on to a little of it. So if you quit, you will have a little to go on. Glad you are satisfied, that's all you need. Guess you need good saws. I hope you can get them. They cost a lot, too. Gee, those boots are high. They should wear real good. Sounds like you like it up there and like to work in the timber. I am glad. One thing, don't be drinking too much. Cut down once in a while. Ray talks like Walter charged too much a week. Don't let him cheat you. Food is getting higher every place. You buy a couple of calves and I'll raise them for you. I'm going to raise some more this year. All I can. I wanted to buy a couple ton of hay, but got no money, so I can't. I thought $28 a ton is cheap. They deliver it besides. The little mare looks better, and she leads. So you cook. You don't mind that, do you? Just so you had plenty to cook. Cooking always looked like it was easy for you. Do your best, that's all you can do. I've been planting some more stuff. After this month, I'll quit. Getting late to plant even now, but I want to see how it works out. According to the almanac, it's not too late. We had a few corn. Ruby didn't plant anything, so she comes over and takes what she wants. Vino did get in once. She got in by the dead tree. Then I had to fix the fence. She hasn't been in since, but sure watches my gates. I am up here at Ray's place right now watering flowers and trees. They have a few garden stuff. Few beans, squash, potatoes, and a couple hills of watermelon. I told Ruby to pick them too. Mel and Schaefer were up. They left last night. They killed quite a few rabbits. Mel dried the meat, cut it in small pieces. Tasted pretty good. Zip ate some of it and liked it. She said she was going to make some. She has a .22. She keeps it with her all the time. My old .22 won't even shoot, just snaps. Guess there is something wrong with it. But I sure don't know anything about it. But I can shoot. I killed several rabbits in my garden. Maria left here the first. I hope they are okay. She is supposed to come back when school starts. But maybe Ray will leave there and work some other place. Talked like it. We had a few funerals here lately. First Pablo died, then Gracie Quarto got word her boy was killed in Vietnam. So the two were buried the same day. Just lately, 9th, Sabrina died and was buried here. There were quite a few from all over. Frank and his wife sang. That was nice. Sue Malanga was here too. Some from Indio, Quartzsite, we all went. Elaine is going to stay at Pablo's place. Wish I was there to eat some of those wild berries. I can't see when you will find time to pick them. If someone would pick them, then you might make some jelly. Billy and her family are all okay. She sure has a bunch of cows and calves. They got hay from Bozeman. They had oat and alfalfa, same price this time. All our cattle are falling off. We had an early thunder shower, ruined the grass. A big fire at Antelope Wells, sure was smoky here. Said lightning started it. Pretty clear now, so they must have put it out. Been hot here the last couple days. Rained all around us, not a drop fell here. I am pretty busy since everyone here has gone watering things. Zip always comes and helps me. Will Stark told me to tell you he wanted you to go to Oklahoma with him. Said he wanted you to stay with him. So he is going to start moving in September, taking a bull and horses first. He will have to make about 3 trips before his family goes. They are all going but the big boy. Will said you was real good when you were with them. He said, I don't mind drinking, but I can't stand a drunk. So guess you can drink, but don't get drunk. Eddie did want to go up there and guess he would have went first, but no one said too much about it. Lope wanted to go up there too, but changed his mind. He seems like he does get tired easy. Maybe the work is hard. Nothing here, same old thing. Us Indians always drinking then dying. Don't seem to mind, though. I haven't been no place only to store and P.O. How is Maria and Ray doing? Guess Ray feels better now. Tell her everything is okay here. Burley made up with me just today. Ruby and family are going on a Jehovah's convention. They will be gone 3 days. Well, boy, I'll quit writing for now. Write when you can. Be careful. And don't drink too much. Drink, but don't get drunk. Ha. Tell all hello. All said hello to you. Charlie was telling me she got a letter from you. Bye, boy. As ever, Ma. That's what you call a found poem. I found that on the floor of an abandoned logger's cabin. It was a letter that had been of a cabin that had been abandoned. I picked that up in 1970, and the cabin had been abandoned about 1964. And the old loggers in the area, this was only a mile from my house, the old loggers in the area said, yeah, that was an Indian group that lived there. They were logging up in that country, and they had come up from Southern California, and then they had disappeared. In 72, they disappeared. Nobody knew where they went. But when I picked it up and read it, at the point I was in my life, it was like a letter to me. You know, it's a letter from the Great Mother. Take care. Don't drink too much. Well, I'm going to read a few poems that are... I'm going to finish up this reading tonight with a few recent poems, shorter poems. Working on the 58 Willys pickup truck, dedicated to the Sung Dynasty Chinese poet Lu Yu. You know those really fine old boxy Willys trucks? Before Willys sold out to American Motors and Jeep started going downhill. The year this truck was made, 1958, I was sitting in early morning darkness, chanting sutras in Kyoto, Japan, and spending my days studying Chinese, Japanese, Sanskrit, French, the joys of Dharma scholarship, and those splendid temples. But I learned nothing about trucks. Now, to bring sawdust, rotten and rich, from a sawmill that was abandoned the year I was born, lost in the young fir and cedar at Bloody Run Creek, so that clay in the garden can be broken and tempered, and growing plants mulched to save water, and also to haul gravel from the old placer diggings to screen it and mix in the sand with the clay, putting pebbles aside to strew on the paths so muddy in winter. I lie in the dusty and broken bush under the pickup, already thought to be old, and admiring from underneath its solidness, its square lines, thinking a truck like this would please Chairman Mao. The rear end rebuilt and put back with new spider gears, the brake cylinders cleaned, the brake drums new turned, new brake shoes, taught how to do this by friends who themselves spent youth with the classics. The garden gets better. I laugh in the evening to pick up Chinese and read about farming. I fix truck and lock eyebrows with tough-handed men of of the past. A mind like compost. It's a little poem. All this new stuff goes on top. Turn it over, turn it over. Wait and water down. From the dark bottom, turn it inside out. Let it spread through, sift down, even watch it sprout. A couple of public service poems. By that I mean poems that have been generated from the time I have put in as an appointee to the California Arts Council in California by Jerry Brown, something I've been doing for 4 years now, along with 8 other artists, the new California Arts Council being designed according to the enabling legislation, which I wrote, because Jerry was too lazy to do it, that calls specifically for the council to be appointed out of a body of working artists. And then from that, we worked with a number of programs designed to spend public money as widely and effectively as possible and bring the arts consciousness to all people in the state, rather than leaving it on a kind of a high Occidental culture level, trying to balance it out, actually, on all sides. We only made one mistake, really. We gave a grant to a wonderful man named Jim Nolman, who's a musician, who wanted to design musical instruments to play to whales. We only gave him $2,000 to work on designing instruments to play underwater to gray whales while they're migrating. He thought it was only fair, since whales sing songs to us, that we should try to make some music back to them. But every newspaper in California jumped on that grant and said, "What? Spending taxpayers' money to play music to whales?" 2 bills were brought to the floor of the California legislature last summer to have us abolished outright. But we survived that. And actually, we were kind of vindicated by I tried to justify it publicly by saying, well, since the offshore limits have been extended to the 200-mile limit, the whales are part of our concern. They're only 12 miles out there anyway. And as it turns out, Jim Nolman does really beautiful work. The instruments he designs are incredibly effective, and the music, he's designed them after much study and listening. And he goes out 10 or 15 miles off the coast, and and then he jumps overboard with all of his instruments in his arms, and he sinks down about 10 or 15 feet and sort of hangs in there, and he starts playing. And the gray whales and the dolphins come from miles away, and they circle around him, and they squeak and bubble. They love it. So we were vindicated, because the National Science Foundation just gave him $70,000 to continue the work. But they're always practical, you know. Their idea is that maybe he can figure out a way to tell the dolphins to stay out of the tuna nets. Seriously, yeah. Isn't that funny? Arts councils. Because there is no art, there are artists. Because there are no artists, we need money. Because there is no money, we give. Because there is no we, there is art. I just sent a copy of that to Livingston Middle, the new head of the National Endowment for the Arts. One more, sort of a Chinese-style poem called Talking Late with the Governor About the Budget. Entering the midnight halls of the Capitol, iron carts full of printed bills, filling life with rules. At the end of many chambers, alone in a large tan room, the governor sits without dinner, scanning a hill of laws, budgets, codes in this state of 20 million, from desert to ocean. Till the oil runs out, there's no end to this in sight. Outside, his car waits with driver alone, engine idling. And the great pines on the Sacramento Capitol grounds are less than a century old. We walk to the street, tired of the effort of thinking about the people. The half moon travels west in the elegant company of Jupiter and Aldebaran. And back east over the Sierra Nevada, I see far flashes of lightning. I think, is it raining tonight at home? Lou Welch was a fellow poet at Reed College, same years as myself, with whom I had many shared days and works over the decades, and who committed suicide, disappeared with a revolver into the woods near my house in 1972, and was never seen again. That is to say, we never found his body either, just disappeared. Marvelous poet, posthumous collection of poems called Ring of Bone, some of the finest and most lyrical and sensitive poetry since World War II. A couple of years ago in the sweat lodge, taking a sweat, Lou came into my mind exactly as this poem describes it. So I call this poem For, From, Lou. Lou Welch just turned up one day, as live as you and me. Damn, Lou, I said. You didn't shoot yourself after all. Yes, I did, he said. And even then I felt the tingling down my back. Yes, you did too, I said. I can feel it now. Yeah, he said. There's a basic fear between your world and mine. I don't know why. But what I came to say was, teach the children about the cycles, the life cycles, all the other cycles. That's what it's all about, and it's all for God. Axe handles, teaching one of the boys how to throw a hatchet. You know, you start with holding the hatchet so the blade is pointing toward you. Then you throw it, and it goes half turn and sticks. Later on, you can learn how to hold it so the blade's away from you. It goes a full turn and sticks. Then you can get more complicated later. One afternoon, the last week in April, showing Kai how to throw a hatchet. One half turn, and it sticks in a stump. He likes that. And he recalls the hatchet head without a handle that's in the shop, and go gets it and wants it for his own. A broken off axe handle is behind the door, and it's long enough for a hatchet. So we cut it to length and take it with the hatchet head and the working hatchet to the wood block. There I begin to shape the old handle with the hatchet, and the phrase, first learned from Ezra Pound, rings in my ears. When making an axe handle, the pattern is not far off. And I say this to Kai. Look, we'll shape the handle by checking the handle of the axe we cut with. And he sees. And I remember then the original of Pound's quote. It's from Lu Ji's One Fu, the essay on literature, 4th century AD. It's in the preface. He says, in making the handle of an axe, by cutting wood with an axe, the model is indeed near at hand. My Chinese teacher, Shixiang Qian, translated that and said it to me years ago. And I see he was an axe, and I am an axe, and my son a handle, soon to be shaping again, model and tool, craft of culture, how we go on. I'm going to finish tonight with this. It came out of a backpacking trip through the Absarokies and the southeast corner of Yellowstone Wilderness. Where I passed through a territory called the Thoroughfare Meadows, in which moose, coyotes, grizzly bear, black bear, marsh hawks, bald eagles, golden eagles, trout were moving around the way it's supposed to be. And seeing that little island of Pleistocene richness, reminded me of how the planet is, really. And so that's what I did here. Ah, to be alive. On a mid-September morn, fording a stream, barefoot, pants rolled up, holding boots, pack on, sunshine, ice in the shallows, northern Rockies. Rustle and shimmer of icy creek water, stones turn underfoot as small and hard as toes, cold nose dripping, singing inside, creek music, heart music, smell of sun on gravel. I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the soil of Turtle Island and to the beings who thereon dwell. One ecosystem in diversity under the sun with joyful interpenetration for all.